Ladies and gentlemen, before we get started, this podcast is brought to you by Final Form Supplements. Final Form Supplements is a supplement brand with honesty labeling. So the labeling in supplements is Wild Wild West. Sometimes labels aren't honest. They have things in there that's on in there. We don't have to worry about that with Final Form Supplements. We got everything you need from protein powder, creatine, skin care, soap for your skin, handcrafted soap, and we have all kinds of things. Go to finalformsubs.com, that's SUPPS, finalformsubs.com. Use promo code COACHSTRIB, all caps, no space. Get 10% off your order. And make sure you like, comment, subscribe on whichever video you're watching here at Ivy Talks Podcast Network. And enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the WNBA coverage. We have an exciting another week of coverage of the WNBA. So we're going to get straight into it. Those of y'all that are new, welcome. Those of y'all that aren't new, I appreciate you coming back. But if those of you that are new, welcome. Go ahead and comment, like, and subscribe to whatever you're listening or watching this at. But we're going to get straight into it. We're going to start off like we always do with the standings. So in the East, New York Liberty at 1, Connecticut Suns at 2, Indiana Fever at 3, Chicago Skies at 4, Atlanta Dream at 5, Washington Mystics are at 6. We'll go over some of the movement we're seeing in the rankings after this. But in the West, we got Las Vegas Aces at the 1 spot, Minnesota Lynx at the 2, Seattle Storms at the 3, Phoenix Mercury at 4, LA Sparks at 5, and Dallas Wings at 6. Real quick, going over some leaders we have. Adrian Wilson, points per game, 27.2. Been fairly consistent there. Rebounds per game. Angel Reese at 12 rebounds per game. Adrian Wilson is right behind her at 11.9. So it is going to be a dogfight for that rebound champ. Assists per game, we have Caitlin Clark at 7.8 and Alyssa Thomas at 7.7. Natasha Cloud at 7.2. Again, we have a dogfight there in the assists per game. It's going to come down to pretty much the last week of the season. It's going to come down to that is what it's looking like. Steals per game, we got Ogunbowale at 2.6 and Nafisia Collier at 2.2. Another tight race there. And blocks per game, Adrian Wilson at 2.8 blocks per game. Now, going into my notes and some movement, those of y'all that were here last week might recognize there's been some pretty big movements we have going on. So in the East, Liberty's creating some separation. Let me bring up my notes here real quick. So we just talked over the standings. New York Liberty, they've been pretty much number 1 spot ever since they took over from Connecticut's great start to the season. New York, once they took over, they've been pretty much at the top, but it's been close. New York is starting to get some separation. There are 2 games above Connecticut Suns, who are number 2. They're getting 2 games away. It was like 1 game, half a game. They would be tied here and there. Now they're starting to get separation 2 games away. And Fever's closing the gap. Indiana Fevers, they're sitting at 3rd when Fever and Chicago were kind of fighting for that 4th and 5th spot, then 3rd and 4th spot. But the Fever are kind of getting a little separation from the Skies there. But there's still a big gap between 2 and 3. So Indiana Fever, they are 7 games behind Connecticut, and they are 9 games behind Liberty. So it would take a lot for them to get that 2nd spot, but they are trying to just solidify that 3rd spot because they are now 2 games above Chicago Skies, who is at number 4. In the West, Las Vegas Aces have gone on a run this past week. I believe they've won 4 straight. They've gone on a run, and they have taken that number 1 spot. If you guys remember a few episodes ago earlier in the season, I was saying that I could see out of the West, the Aces being that team that starts to figure it out, starts playing a little bit better defense. They have the number 1 offense. They have the number 1 pace. They're top 5 in 3 points made. And so now we're starting to see them start to play their best ball, and they're obviously coached by an amazing coach in Becky Hammond. But the Las Vegas Aces take that number 1 spot. It is tight. The Minnesota Lynx are right behind them. They have the same win record at 16 wins, but the Minnesota Lynx have 8 losses to Las Vegas Aces 7. So it could go back and forth there. But I do also want to mention Seattle Storm is applying pressure to the Minx, the Minnesota Lynx. They're applying pressure. They are 17-8, and the Lynx are 16-8. But I believe the Lynx beat the Seattle Storm head to head. But again, all it takes is a 1 or 2 game wins here, and we could have a lot of movement between 1, 2, and 3 out of the West. But that's some of the movement we're seeing, and it's becoming a real tight race, whether you're looking at the East at 1 and 2 or the West 1, 2, and 3 are going to be fighting for that number 1 spot. So now we got some shout outs from this past week. So shout out to Skylar Diggins Smith from Seattle Storm. She moved up to 15th all time in the assist list in WNBA. Shout out to her. Shout out to Sabrina Ionescu. She hits the dagger against I forget who they played, but she hits the dagger to get the lead. She hits the dagger. They were up by like a point. She hits a dagger late in the fourth quarter to get them up by 2 possessions. Then the last possession, she gets the game-winning block. So shout out to Sabrina. She against the Connecticut Suns, and that was the head-to-head. So they were tied last week. They were tied at the time of recording. They were tied, and they had a head-to-head game. And Sabrina gets the dagger late in the fourth and the game-saving block or game-winning block to put them up against Connecticut in the head-to-head matchup. And they're actually playing right now another head-to-head game, and Liberty's up 52-48 with 6 minutes left in the third. So they're battling it out, and these are going to be really important wins for New York moving forward. And these are going to be really important games for Connecticut if they could try to squeak this win to keep that gap really close. Shout out to Angel Wilson. She had a career-high 20 rebounds with 24 points in the win over Seattle Storm. And she also, this past week, moves to 4th in the franchise in steals. So she's 4th all-time in steals for the Las Vegas Aces. Shout out to Angel Wilson. It seems like we're shouting out Angel Wilson every week, which, of course, because she's playing absolutely phenomenal basketball. She is breaking records left and right, and she's going to continue to do so. All right, moving on to Kaylee Copper for the Phoenix Mercury. 32 points in the win over Dallas. Her 7th 30-point game this season. She is balling, going absolutely crazy, and that's why she is one of the best. She is an all-star. I don't remember exactly if she was the all-star or if she's on the Olympic team, but she is a part of the Team USA versus Team All-Star that they're going to have during the All-Star break. And last but not least, Kayla McBride moves to 10th all-time on 3 points made for the WNBA. Not just franchise, but for the WNBA or the W, she moves to top 10 all-time in 3-point field goals made. So big shout-outs, and we'll continue to keep covering and see how things go with this game right here. It's now 52-50, so it's a 2-point game between the Connecticut Suns and New York Liberty. This is a very, very important game for Connecticut to win, to really keep that fight close between the 1 and 2 spot there for their conference. And we're excited to see how these games go and what teams move, what teams don't. Also, I want to shout out to Angel Reese as well, because she broke the record for most consecutive double-doubles. She continued it. Her streak, unfortunately, ended up snapping against the New York Liberty. They quadruple teamed her for the last possession to get, but she hit finishes with 15 consecutive double-doubles, which is a new WNBA record, and she's going to continue to get more double-doubles because she's just a rebounding machine. She's a second-point basket machine, and we're actually going to start looking into the Rookie of the Year conversations as we get closer to the end of the season. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of the WNBA coverage. We'll catch you guys next week.